It's a simple question. Does looking at something change it? Most of the time we'd say no. If I look at a rock, the rock stays a rock. My looking doesn't seem to affect it at all. It just sits there being a rock. The universe seems to unfold on its own, whether we're watching or not. A star explodes galaxies away. A tree falls in a forest with no one around. These things happen. Our observation feels separate. We feel like an audience watching a movie that was already filmed. But the more you poke at that idea, the more it starts to fall apart. It unravels first in ways that make sense and then in ways that feel like they break your brain. The simple answer is yes. Observing something absolutely changes its reality. And it happens on every level of existence, from how you feel about your job to the very fabric of matter itself. Let's start with people. This is the easiest place to see it. Imagine you're home alone. You're lounging on the sofa, maybe scratching an itch, singing off key to a song, eating cereal straight from the box. You are in your natural state. Now imagine you hear a key in the lock. Someone is coming home. Or imagine you realize you're sitting in front of a window and a neighbor is looking in. What happens? You change instantly. You sit up straighter. You stop singing. You put the cereal box away. Your behavior, your reality of that moment has been completely altered by the simple act of being observed. You are now performing a version of yourself. The home alone reality has vanished and been replaced by the being seen reality. It's the same you, the same room, the same box of cereal, but the entire dynamic has shifted. This isn't just a small, silly thing. It's a fundamental principle of human behavior. It's called the Hawthorne effect. Back in the 1920s, researchers went to a factory called the Hawthorne Works to study worker productivity. They wanted to see if changing the lighting would make people work harder, so they made the lights brighter. Productivity went up. They thought, great, we found something. But then, just to be sure, they tried dimming the light. Productivity went up again. They tried keeping the lights the same. Productivity still went up. They were confused for a while. Then they realized the truth. It had nothing to do with the light. In the workers' arms, the workers, knowing they were being studied, knowing someone was paying attention to them, simply worked harder. They felt important. They felt seen. The researchers, by observing the system, had fundamentally changed the system. They couldn't get a pure reading of a normal day because their very presence made the day abnormal. You see this everywhere. A boss walks through the office and everyone suddenly looks busier. A police car appears in your rearview mirror and you check your speed, even if you weren't speeding. You take your kid to the doctor and say, he's been coughing all week. And for that entire hour in the doctor's office, he doesn't cough once. The context of observation changes the behavior. This goes deeper than just our actions. It changes how we see ourselves. Think about social media. It is a machine for mutual observation. We are constantly observing others and being observed ourselves. Does this change the reality of our lives? Well, of course it does. People post their highlight reels, the perfect vacation photo, the successful project, the happy family dinner. They are curating a reality for others to see, but it's a two-way street. The act of curating that reality changes their own. They might start chasing experiences not for the experience itself, but for how it will look when observed by others. The pressure to present a certain reality can begin to shape the reality they actually live. They start performing for an invisible audience even when they're alone. The observation becomes internalized. And what about when we observe ourselves? We call it introspection, self-awareness, or mindfulness. The moment you start paying attention to your own thoughts, you change them. Try it now. Just observe your thinking. What is your mind doing? The moment you ask that question, your mind gets quiet for a second. It becomes self-conscious. The chaotic, natural flow of thought is interrupted by the act of looking at it. If you are feeling angry, your anger is a hot, all-consuming reality. But if you can step back and observe it, saying to yourself, I am feeling anger right now, something shifts. The anger doesn't necessarily go away, but its nature changes. It becomes an object you are looking at rather than the lens through which you are seeing everything. You are no longer just angry. You are a person who is observing a feeling of anger. You have created a space between you and the emotion. You've changed your internal reality. This is the entire basis of many forms of therapy and meditation. The observation is the tool for change. You watch your habits, your patterns, your reactions, and by watching them clearly, you begin to alter them. You can't fix a problem you don't see. Observation is the first step. It even works on others. The way we observe people can change who they become. There's another famous study, this one involving teachers and students. Researchers went into a school and gave students an IQ test. Then, they randomly selected a few students from each class and told the teachers, "These students are special. They are poised for an intellectual growth spurt this year." There was nothing special about these kids. They were chosen at random, but the teachers didn't know that. They observed these students through a new lens, the lens of expectation. They expected them to be smart, so they probably paid more attention to them, gave them more challenging work, offered more encouragement. At the end of the year, they tested all the students again, and those randomly chosen kids. Their IQ scores had actually jumped, significantly more than their classmates. The teacher's observation, colored by their belief, created a new reality for those students. They saw potential, and that act of seeing helped the potential to exist. The opposite is also true. If you observe someone with suspicion and distrust, you can change them too. You might interpret their innocent actions in a negative light. You might treat them differently, and in response, they might become defensive and withdrawn, confirming your original suspicions. You co-created a reality with them just by how you chose to look. We are all shaping each other all the time with the power of our attention. So, on the human level, it seems obvious. Observation is a form of participation. It is an interaction. To look is to touch, in a way. Our attention is a force. It makes people self-conscious. It makes them productive. It helps them grow, and it can box them in. The audience is never separate from the play. Now, this is where it gets strange. For a long time, we assumed this was just a human thing, a quirk of psychology. A rock is a rock. An atom is an atom. The physical world, the world of science, should be immune to this stuff. A scientist is supposed to be a neutral observer, measuring what's already there. The goal is to get a pure reading of objective reality, but in the early 20th century, physicists started digging into the world of the very, very small. Sure, they started looking at atoms, electrons, photons, the building blocks of everything. And they found something that completely shattered the idea of a neutral observer. They found that on the quantum level, the act of observing doesn't just disturb what's there, it determines what's there. The most famous example of this is the double slit experiment. It's a mind-bending experiment, but the idea is simple. Imagine a wall with two thin parallel slits in it. You stand on one side and shoot tiny particles like electrons at the wall. On the other side of the wall is a detector screen that lights up wherever an electron hits it. If you close one slit and fire the electrons, they go through the open slit and hit the screen behind it, forming a single band. Makes sense. If you close the other slit and open the first one, you get a single band in a different place. Also makes sense. Now, what do you think happens if you open both slits? Logic says you should get two bands, one behind each slit. The electrons, like tiny baseballs, should go through one slit or the other and hit the screen. But that is not what happens. When both slits are open and you just fire the electrons without trying to see which slit they go through, you get a completely different pattern on the screen. You get a series of many bands, an interference pattern. This is the pattern that waves make. Think of dropping two pebbles in a pond. The ripples from each pebble spread out and interfere with each other, creating peaks and troughs. The interference pattern from the electrons means that somehow each electron is not acting like a particle. It's acting like a wave. It is going through both slits at the same time and interfering with itself. That idea alone is bizarre. A single electron goes through both slits, but it gets weirder. The physicists, being physicists, couldn't accept this. They wanted to know which slit the electron was really going through. So, they set up a detector, a tiny little measuring device right by the slits. This detector would just register which slit each electron passed through. That's all. A simple act of observation. And the moment they did that, the moment they looked, the interference pattern vanished. The electrons, as soon as they were observed, stopped acting like waves. They started acting like particles again. They went through one slit or the other, not both. And the pattern on the screen went back to being two simple bands, just like we'd expect from tiny baseballs. This is the central mystery of quantum mechanics. The very act of measuring, of observing which path the electron took, forced the electron to choose a path. When it wasn't being looked at, it existed in a state of all possibilities at once, a wave of probability. It was a smear of potential. The moment a measurement was made, that wave of possibilities collapsed into a single, definite reality. The electron appeared in a specific place. Think about what this means. The reality of the electron was different depending on whether or not it was being watched. Now watch reality wave, both slits, interference. Watch reality particle, one slit, no interference. The question, which slit did the unobserved electron go through, is meaningless. It didn't go through one or the other. It existed in a different kind of reality, a fuzzy potential reality, until the observation forced it into our familiar concrete reality. This isn't a metaphor, it is the experimentally verified nature of the universe at its most fundamental level. Every time the experiment is done, this is what happens. Observation doesn't just see reality. It seems to create it from a menu of possibilities. Now, it's important to be clear about what observation means here. It doesn't necessarily mean a conscious human being with eyeballs and a brain. In physics, an observation or a measurement is any interaction with another system. The detector at the slit interacts with the electron. That interaction is what forces the wave to collapse. A photon bouncing off the electron to reveal its position is an interaction. You can't measure something without touching it in some way. And at the quantum scale, that touch isn't gentle. It fundamentally alters the thing being measured. This demolishes the idea of a separate, objective observer. You can't stand apart from the quantum world and just look at it. To look is to interact, to measure is to participate. The observer and the observed are tangled up together. They form a single system. There is no out there that is truly separate from us or from our instruments. This leads to all sorts of philosophical headaches. What is the true nature of something when it's not being observed? Does a tree falling in the forest make a sound? The quantum version is even weirder. Does the moon exist when nobody is looking at it? Einstein famously asked this, bothered by the implications of quantum theory. According to a strict interpretation, before an observation is made, the moon isn't in a definite place. It's a wave of probability. Of course, the moon is constantly interacting with things, gravitational fields, cosmic rays, photons, so it's constantly being observed in the physical sense. But the principle is what's so jarring. The idea of a solid, definite world out there that exists independently of any interaction is, at the smallest scales, wrong. Reality seems to be something that is co-created in the moment of interaction. This opens the door to even wilder ideas. Some physicists and philosophers have wondered if consciousness itself, not just a mechanical detector, plays a special role. What if the final collapse of the wave function only happens when the information reaches a conscious mind? This is not a mainstream scientific view, but it hasn't been disproven. It suggests that consciousness is not just a byproduct of a complex brain looking at the universe, but perhaps a fundamental aspect of the universe itself, intrinsically involved in turning quantum possibility into actual reality. This is heavy stuff. But we can bring it back down to Earth. What both the human world and the quantum world are telling us is the same thing, just in different languages. They are telling us that the idea of a passive observer is an illusion. When you observe something, you are focusing your attention on it. Attention is not nothing. It is a real thing. In the psychological realm, it's a concentration of mental resources that brings with it expectation, judgment, and memory. In the physical realm, it requires an interaction, an exchange of energy or information that changes the state of what you're observing. Think about the simple act of naming things. When you look at the patch of green outside, you don't just see a collection of colors and shapes. You observe it, and your mind labels it. That's a lawn. That's a tree. That's a flower. And that's a weed. The moment you label something a weed, you change its reality for you. It is no longer just a plant. It is a plant that is in the wrong place. It is an intruder. Your observation, followed by classification, has changed its value and meaning. Someone else might look at the exact same plant and call it a dandelion, or food, or medicine. The plant itself hasn't changed, but its reality has, depending on the observer. Our entire world is built this way. We don't see raw reality. We see a world that has been filtered and shaped by our attention, our language, our culture, and our beliefs. We are constantly selecting what to observe and how to observe it. Two people can look at the exact same event and see two completely different realities. One sees a protest, the other sees a riot. One sees a struggling company, the other sees an opportunity. The raw data might be the same, but the reality they experience is a product of their observation. This has huge implications for our lives. If observation changes reality, then what we choose to observe is one of the most important choices we make. If you constantly observe the negative aspects of your life, the things that are wrong, the injustices, the annoyances, you are actively participating in the creation of a negative reality. You are strengthening those neural pathways in your brain. You are training your attention to find more of the same. The world literally starts to look darker and more threatening. Your observation is a spotlight, and what it illuminates grows. Conversely, if you practice observing the good moments of gratitude, small beauties, acts of kindness layer, you are also participating in the creation of a different reality. You are not denying the negative exists. You are simply choosing where to place your spotlight. By observing these things, you give them weight. You make them more real in your own experience. And like the teachers in the school experiment, this observation can have an effect on the world around you. When you observe the good in other people, they often rise to meet your expectation. This is not about magical thinking, it's about a feedback loop. What you pay attention to affects your mood and your actions. Your mood and actions affect the world around you, and the world around you then affects what you pay attention to. It's a cycle. The act of observation is the steering wheel. We can see this in practical skills too. An artist learns to see the world differently. They don't just see a face. They observe the way light falls on a cheekbone, the subtle shifts in color, the relationship between shapes. Their intense, focused observation reveals a reality that most of us miss. The act of trying to draw something forces you to observe it in a new way, and in doing so, you change its reality for you. It is no longer just a cup. It is a series of curves, shadows, and reflections. A mechanic listening to an engine hears a complex language, not just noise. A gardener looking at a plant sees signs of thirst or disease that are invisible to others. In every field, expertise is largely a matter of refined observation, and that refined observation allows them to interact with a reality that is more detailed and malleable than the one the rest of us see. So, where does this leave us? The world is not a static photograph we are looking at. It's more like a dynamic, interactive dance. And we are not in the audience, we are on the dance floor. Our every glance, every measurement, every moment of attention is a move in that dance. It sends ripples out, changing the steps of everything around us. On the human level, being observed changes how we behave, how we think, and who we become. Our attention is a powerful force that shapes the people and the society we live in. We are constantly co-creating our social reality through the act of mutual observation. On the physical level, the universe is built on a foundation of uncertainty. At its smallest scale, reality seems to be a shimmering cloud of possibilities, waiting for an interaction, an observation, to snap one of those possibilities into focus. The observer and the observed are fundamentally linked. This is a profound shift in perspective. It means we are not passive victims of circumstance, simply witnessing a pre-written story. We are active participants, we are involved, what we choose to look at matters, how we choose to look at it matters even more. Do we observe with judgment or with curiosity, with fear or with compassion, with expectation of failure or with expectation of potential? Each of these is a different kind of interaction. Each one helps to collapse the wave of possibility into a different kind of reality. The shy person at a party who is observed with warm, welcoming eyes might feel safe enough to open up. The student who is observed with a belief in their intelligence might find the confidence to excel. The electron that is observed at the slits is forced to behave like a good, solid particle. So yes, looking at something changes it. It's not magic, it's the nature of reality. We are entangled with the world, not separate from it. And this is both a great responsibility and a great freedom. It means that by changing how we observe, we can, in a very real way, begin to change the world. It starts with the simple choice of where we place our attention. What do you want to make real today?